Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
That we are tracking, but the top story this evening, Donald Trump has finally put his money where his mouth is. Late last evening, he signed an executive memorandum that would impose tariffs on Chinese imports worth up to a whopping $60 billion. Now, U.S. claims that the tariffs have been imposed in retaliation to unfairly acquired U.S. intellectual property by China. The tariffs have been imposed following an investigation of Chinese policies ordered by the United States president in August last year. Now, Trump claimed that the tariffs would, and I quote now, make U.S. a much stronger, richer nation, unquote. According to the U.S. government officials, the United States Trade Representative will publish a list of targeted products in the next 15 days.
We have right now an $800 billion trade deficit with the world. So think of that. So let's say we have 500 to 375, but let's say we have 500 with China, but we have 800 total with the world. That would mean that China is more than half. So we're going to get it taken care of. Just use the word reciprocal. If they charge us, we charge them the same thing.
There you have it from the president. Mr. Trump has announced $60 billion worth of tariffs on Chinese imports. He said it was the first of many measures designed to penalize China for practices that include stealing of American intellectual property. Now, despite praising the relationship, as you heard there, between his administration and President Xi, Mr. Trump said he will consider further action in two.
Nelson Cunningham, the president of McLarty Associates. Thank you very much, Nelson, for joining in on the show. You know, to begin with, we started 2018 with a global GDP well above the 4% mark. If we go into a full-scale trade war, by how much do you expect this to get eradicated?
How do I expect a war to be eradicated?
Nelson, I was saying, in terms of the global GDP, we entered 2018 well above that 4% mark. Do you expect global growth to get eradicated if at all we were to go into a full-scale trade war?
Well, that is the question of the day. At the moment, all of the world's economies are doing well, particularly, of course, India's. But the United States economy has been doing well for the last several years. What impact will these tariffs have? I think we need to wait on the full Chinese response to know the answer to that. For the moment, the Chinese have been restrained in their response, and they're opening the door for negotiation. But with the new leadership at the White House on foreign affairs issues, I think we're going to see an even more difficult stance taken by the United States.
Nelson, you've studied U.S.-China relations for long. If negotiations don't go through, are you confident that we are expecting to see a trade war around the corner? And, you know, the question that many are asking is, are we already in the middle of a trade war?
Well, the Chinese leadership is very experienced. I think they may be taking a more strategic view than the United States is here, and it does not give me pleasure to say that. But I believe the Chinese will be measuring carefully their response to avoid a trade war. Having said that, the president's very strong in his views. President Trump is very strong in his views. And on the issue of intellectual property, he does have the U.S. business community behind him. They do support his efforts on intellectual property, although they do not support the steel and aluminum tariffs as a general matter.
You know, Nelson, with this tariff imposition, do you agree? You know, there is a brokerage house that had said that Trump administration has actually crossed lines that have not been crossed before. Is this the line that has been crossed?
Yes, I think we're seeing many lines being crossed, and I believe with, again, as I mentioned, the new leadership at the White House, with Mr. Bolton replacing General McMaster as the national security advisor, with Mr. Kudlow replacing Mr. Cohn as the National Economic Advisor, we are only going to become more impetuous when it comes to crossing lines.
Okay. Nelson, before we wrap, a quick word from you on what the impact would be on economies like India. Of course, if there is global slowdown, we get hit. But in the short to the medium term, what is the immediate impact that we should be prepared for?
Well, I think that, first of all, India is in a strong position with the United States, in part because Mr. Modi has such a good relationship with Mr. Trump. That is a very important starting position for India. Having said that, President Trump measures the economic relationship with countries around the world by the status of the trade deficit the United States has with them. India's trade deficit is substantial with the U.S., or your surplus with the U.S. is substantial, $30 billion U.S. every year. I think India has to caution itself that the moment will come when President Trump will turn to Mr. Modi and say, Mr. Modi, what is your plan for reducing this $30 billion U.S. trade imbalance? And that will become a difficult moment for India.
And Nelson, that's an important point you have raised, that India will have to caution themselves. But we will have to wrap up this conversation, Nelson. Thank you so much for joining in with those important takes on what the impact would be and the ripple effect on countries like India. But let's take a look at how the Indian markets fared. Let's actually first talk about the U.S. markets. Markets traded slightly higher after digested China's response to Trump's tariff impositions on China. The S&P 500 is absolutely flat right now with a slight positive bias, while the Dow and the Nasdaq are trading about 0.2% higher. We'll just pull those up for you. However, investors across the world are in a panic mode after the escalation of trade tensions between US and China. So European markets, for instance, are trading with cuts as the French CAC and German DAX are down over 1%. There you go. You can see that's actually well over 1% for the DAX. The French CAC losing about 59 points, and the British FTSE also in the red, down by about 0.3%. Now, it seems to be a similar story for markets in Asia as well. China, the big story that we are breaking at this hour, the IT Ministry has issued a notice to Cambridge Analytica. This after news of them misusing data about individuals obtained from Facebook and utilizing it for activities without the consent of users came out in the open. Let's bring in Ashmit Kumar, who has the details of that notice. Ashmit, take us to what exactly has been pointed out by the ministry.
Well, the government seems to have followed up on its word through actions, and this time through a notice that they've issued to Cambridge Analytica. The notice is quite clear. It raises serious charges of serious breach of propriety and misuse of data interpreted for profiling and influencing voter behavior. That's the main charge that they're putting.
Right. I think we have some issue with the audio as far as that Ashmit's line is concerned, but you can see the important areas being mentioned in graphics over there. This is an important point that has been outlined by the ministry, and there you can see, while the government is cognizant of the positive role played by the social media in promoting awareness and acting as a tool for social cohesion and empowerment, breach of privacy cannot be tolerated. That is exactly the missive that has been sent by the IT ministry. We will have to move on to another important story. A day after Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg broke his silence on the data manipulation row, another top leader of the company, the COO Sheryl Sandberg, has apologized for the data breach by Cambridge Analytica. Let's move on to the big political story back home. There's some relief for the Aam Aadmi Party. The Delhi High Court today set aside an election commission ruling that had earlier disqualified 20 MLAs belonging to the Aam Aadmi Party on charges of holding office of profit. So today, the High Court observed that natural justice had been violated as no oral hearing was given to the MLAs before disqualifying them as legislators. The High Court, in fact, has asked the Election Commission to hear the matter once again and then take a decision. Now, in what comes as a big relief for Karti Chidambaram, the Delhi High Court has granted him bail in the INX Media case after being in CBI custody for 24 days. The court has in fact granted him bail on a surety of 10 lakh rupees. The court has also asked him to surrender his passport and barred him from travelling overseas. In fact, he has also been barred from closing any of his bank accounts. However, the probe doesn't really end here. The court has also asked him specifically to cooperate with investigative agencies that are investigating this very matter. Now, sticking to court action, there is a fresh twist to the legal battle between founders of Fortis Healthcare and their erstwhile partners, Daiichi Sankyo. The Singh brothers have moved a plea in the Delhi High Court, arguing that the payment of the arbitral award of 3,500 crore rupees to Daiichi does not need to be made now. In their argument, Singh brothers cited that the case is in progress at the Singapore Court of Appeals, and hence, until this matter is settled in the Singapore Court of Appeals, they cannot be directed to pay Daiichi. Now, the state government in 3 southern states, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Kerala, have openly questioned the allocation of funds to their states under the 15th Finance Commission. In fact, Kerala Finance Minister Thomas Isaac has already called for a meeting of the Southern Finance Minister on the 10th of April to discuss this very matter. The bone of contention essentially is the centre's proposal on the devolution of taxes between centre and states. The 15th Finance Commission, remember, has been told to use the 2011 census data as its parameter instead of the 1971 census data which had been used so far. The state governments in the southern states right now feel that the new framework would affect their interests. Listen in to some important voices that came in over the last few hours.
9.47% of percentage total collection, total tax collection in the country. Karnataka is contributing 9.47%, out of which we are getting only 4.65%.
We are highly critical of the terms of reference. These terms of reference is not in the right spirit of federalism. It will further weaken the federal structure of India and worsen the center-state fiscal imbalance. And therefore, we have decided to consult other states. It is very common for states before they prepare the memorandum, have discussions, seminars and so on. And this time we have decided to call the southern states. The finance ministers, the scholars and so on, we are penalized for successfully implementing a national policy.
ఢిల్లీ నుంచి మళ్ళా 42% మనకిచ్చి 59% వాళ్ళు ఖర్చు పెట్టుకుంటున్నారు. ఇవన్నీ కూడా దక్షిణ భారతదేశంలో ఎక్కువ పన్నులు వస్తున్నాయి, కానీ డబ్బులంతా ఖర్చు పెట్టేది ఉత్తర భారతదేశంలో ఎక్కువ ఖర్చు పెడుతున్నారు.
By and large, the southern states, be it Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra and now Telangana, they are more developed, more industrialized than the other states.
So are the southern states really justified when they allege that they do not get a fair share from the government? We in fact access the budget estimates of tax devolution from the centre to the state for the current year. So let's pull this up for you. Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Telangana, all of them get less than 5% share of the centre's total tax devolution. Uttar Pradesh, the largest and the most populated state in the country, gets almost 18% share of the devolution to states. Bihar gets close to 10%. So let's take a look at Maharashtra and Gujarat as well. The two other states who are two of the highest contributors to India's tax kitty. Now, while Maharashtra gets 5.5% share of the tax devolution to the states, Gujarat gets about 3%. Well, with that, we will have to wrap up this edition of What's Hot. We leave you with a story that has brought a smile to many. Olive Ridley turtles have returned to Mumbai's Versova beach after 2 decades. A group of volunteers who were cleaning the beach yesterday stumbled upon the turtle hatchlings making their way to the sea and helped them get across the sand. Environmentalists, politicians and citizens have since taken to Twitter to express their joy over the sighting. Many thanks for watching What's Hot. Stay tuned. In 30 minutes, we'll be back with India Business Hour with the top stories of